I want to talk about what happens after someone gets arrested, but specifically the courts and how they are supposed to ensure that we have a fair trial when the government trying to be up in our business and accuse us of stuff. So we're going to start with an example of this dude. Let's just call him Alex. He's like 22 and he sells fentanyl as like a side hustle. Don't worry, he's fictional. It's not real, so he can't sue us. Probably. So let's say Alex gets arrested because he had like a bunch of fentanyl and he was like trying to sell it. It's no bueno. So as of now, most of what has happened is the result of the police. They investigated cases. They collected enough evidence to develop probable cause. And so now they're passing that baton on to the courts. And this is where things get interesting because the courts are not just a conveyor belt of punishment. They're supposed to be the referee, the quality control department of justice. Their job is to make sure that when the government is like, hey, we think you did these things, it better be based off of evidence and not vibes. But before we talk about what happens in court, we need to talk about what kind of court Alex is even walking into, because it depends on a lot of the context of the case. In the United States, we operate in what is called a dual court system. That means that there is a separate court system for state courts, and then we also have a separate courts for the federal courts. So almost all criminal cases, like 95% of them, those are going to start in state. And so state level courts handle your everyday crimes. So like your assaults, burglaries, your domestics, basically anything that violates state law. And it happens within one state's boundaries. So like if Alex, I don't know, like punched someone in Colorado Springs because they insulted his shoes, that's a state assault because it happened in Colorado Springs. If he steals a car in Denver and drives it to Fort Collins, it's still a state crime because he stole it and he's still driving it within the state. Now, the federal courts, those kick in when someone has violated federal laws, destroyed federal property, or committing crimes in like multiple states, crossing the state boundaries. The federal courts are going to deal with things like drug trafficking, anything where people are committing crimes, going across state lines, robbing banks, essentially just violating federal laws. Those are dealt with at the federal level. So how do you know if a case goes to state or federal courts? If someone robbed a store in Colorado Springs, they would be tried in a state court because it existed within the state. It violated the state law. If someone robbed a store in Colorado Springs and then fled to Kansas and robbed a store there, it would be federal because they committed crimes in multiple states and even crossed a state line. So they're going to get federal charges. They could also get charges at the state level. If someone hacked a government server while in Kansas, but then they used a VPN and made it look like they were in Iceland, congratulations, that person confused everyone, but it's probably going to be dealt with at federal court. Federal cases go through the U.S. District Court, the U.S. Court of Appeals, and also the U.S. Supreme Court. Within state courts, we also have courts of general and courts of limited jurisdiction. General jurisdiction, they essentially deal with everything. They'll deal with like the criminal and the civil cases. But then you also have courts of limited jurisdiction, and they focus on specific types of crime. So that'll be like the juvenile justice system. That would be a court of limited jurisdiction because they only deal with crimes that are committed by people under the age of 18. But then you also have things like specialty courts where everyone that is working within them, from the judge to the prosecutor to the defense, is all kind of on the same page about addressing a larger problem like domestic violence or veterans who get arrested, people who have mental health issues, who commit crimes. We have these specialty courts where everyone who is working within them, from the judge to the prosecutor to the defense, are all kind of on the same page about helping to address a larger problem and with a special consideration for the unique needs of the people who are going through the criminal justice system. I object to how cold it is.